সবাইকে আমন্ত্রণ জানাচ্ছি ফুটবল অ্যান্ড বিয়ন্ডে। ফুটবলের শো, কিন্তু আমরা আজকে কথা বলবো সকার নিয়ে, কারণ আজকে আমাদের যারা গেস্ট আছেন তাদের দেশে ফুটবলকে সকার বলা হয়। ফুটবল বলতে তারা একেবারেই ডিফারেন্ট একটা স্পোর্ট বুঝেন। আমেরিকান এম্বাসির আমন্ত্রণে বাংলাদেশে এসেছেন দুজন সকার কোচ, মানে ফুটবল কোচ। ইট ইজ মাই গ্রেট প্লেজার to introduce you to Schellas Hyndman.
Hello.
And Vlastimir Davidovic. Welcome to TSports. Before we start the serious conversation about football, I would like to ask you, how are you dealing with this extreme hot condition?
It is extremely hot. Yes, you're right. And we're kept really quite busy. But as you can see from my skin, I like the sun. Whenever I want to go someplace, I go to Florida, I go to Mexico, and I enjoy the sun. So this is a nice, pleasant surprise.
Yeah. Vlastimir, what about you?
Yeah, you know, being from Arizona, I'm used to the heat, not used to the humidity, but the excitement of everything that we are doing, the smiling faces of all of the youth that we are interacting, they give us motivation and make it that much easier for us to push through everything that we are doing.
That's good to know. So Coach, tell us, what brings you to Bangladesh?
What brings me to Bangladesh is one day I received a phone call from Nelson Rodriguez, who's the vice president of Major League Soccer. We worked together when I was coaching in the MLS. And he said, we have a wonderful opportunity to go to Bangladesh representing the U.S. State Department in the diplomacy of sports. And it took me 5 minutes to say, yes, count me in.
Okay, and I believe this is your first time in South Asia, and of course in Bangladesh.
Definitely, but out of those 5 minutes, it was 3 minutes for him to call me to ask if I would go with him. Yeah, so first time in this part of the world, and the experience has been amazing.
Right. So you have been engaging in many activities, and on day one, you conducted a training session with the national team girls here in Bangladesh. So what's your take on their talent?
Yeah, it's a really great question because we had no idea. Okay, and here we are with the first session with the national team girls. So we set the session up to be more easier. As it turned out, the girls were much better than we had anticipated. So we had to raise the training session, and I thought they were outstanding.
And they're the top team in South Asia.
Exactly, no, they were very talented, and the more we interacted with them and the more we learned about them, we could realize, okay, well, no surprise that Bangladesh produces high-level female players, and no surprise about the success of the full female national team.
Right. The sports culture in the U.S. is much more advanced, and I must say, like, a lot better than in Bangladesh. But the facilities that our boys and girls get is not enough. But despite the fact they're doing really, really good.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, we have a very good infrastructure in the United States, where players start at a very young age. We have a system called pay to play. You pay money to play, and the money you pay pays for the coaches who educate you and train you. Here you don't have the infrastructure. You have people playing because they just enjoy the game. I think the facilities are not where we're used to having, but then I also think back to 50 years ago in the United States. We were also a country that was very behind the rest of the world. So it can be done, and you have to have the right people with the right attitudes and find a way to get more people involved.
Right. Vlastimir, you also trained with some of the underprivileged soccer players, aspiring soccer players at the Rahman's Football Academy. So what was that like?
Oh yeah, it was an amazing experience to see all of these players with, they make the most with what they have, and it's
very limited resources, right?
Limited, extremely limited resources, but just the joy that they express when they are playing, and just through simple interactions with them to see the sense of gratitude and appreciation of anything that you can share with them, and just the pure joy for the game with as you said, extremely limited resources. They don't even know what they don't have, you know, because that's all they know about.
But the passion for the game is there.
You know, it was very, very touching to the heart. I spent a lot of time in different countries. It reminded me of Brazil, you know, where you have players showing up because they love to play football, but they don't have shoes. They have one ball for 30 people. And for me, I saw boys out there playing without shoes. If Brazil can turn players like Pele, then I think Bangladesh can turn exceptional players as well.
Coach, you had the opportunity to visit the Kings Arena, one of the top Premier League football clubs in Bangladesh, and you already expressed your admiration about the facility.
Yeah, it's absolutely first level, high level, beautiful stadium, and with a lot of structure around. So you have your press box, you got your meeting rooms, you got your locker rooms. As I stated earlier, in my early days in MLS, professional soccer in the United States, some of the facilities were not that good, all right, because they were building stadiums and trying to get the modern art. And I was very blown away, quite honestly, of the quality and how massive that whole complex is.
Right. And also Bashundhara Group, the group that owns the club, they have been investing heavily in sports, and Bashundhara Kings is one of their ventures. Vlastimir, did you expect a structure of this magnitude when you first landed in Bangladesh?
No chance. I mean, all of our exposure prior to visiting this stadium has been limited resources, not a whole lot of infrastructure, and then we go to that venue, to their arena and everything that surrounds it, and although it's not all finished yet, you can have a vision of what it will look like one day when it's all done, and with no chance that we would have expected to see what we found there.
Yeah, and also the people who had the vision to build this.
Right.
Okay, it is one thing to invest into something and put financial dollars to. I believe this is a vision of love.
Yes, and I must say that the credit goes to the chairman of Bashundhara Group. He is actually the visionary, because you've seen the other facilities and infrastructure. The Kings Arena is right up there, right?
It's a different level. This is something you can put in many countries in the world, and people will be very happy with it.
And also, before we go on a break, did you try some of the street foods in Dhaka? I guess you didn't dare.
We tried a little bit with the mangoes and pineapples.
Coconut?
And coconut water.
And coconut water, yeah. And you understand, we were warned, be a little bit careful with the food because it's spicy.
Right.
Just eating, I've never eaten a mango before that was spicy. So.
Anyway, thank you very much, but we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about Bangladesh, US, and of course, football. ছোট্ট একটা বিরতি নিচ্ছি, ফুটবল এন্ড বিয়ন্ডে আমাদের সাথেই থাকবেন। ওয়েলকাম ব্যাক, দেখছেন ফুটবল এন্ড বিয়ন্ড এবং আমাদের সাথে আছেন আমেরিকান কোচেস Schellas Hyndman এবং Vlastimir Davidovic. So let's talk about the soccer in the United States. I know that Major League Soccer is getting a lot of traction. Famous footballers like David Beckham and Zlatan Ibrahimovic has joined the party. But do you think like football will grow as a much bigger sport? Like, it's way behind like sports like baseball, American football, and basketball. Do you think like it would grow bigger in the States in the days to come?
I really do. And the reason I say that is because the generation that's playing soccer today, their parents also played soccer. Before, in the 1960s, when I came to the United States, no one really knew what soccer was. You would have to look very hard to find a soccer game on TV.
Okay.
And we saw things like soccer made in Germany. You know, once a week, maybe you see something. I went to watch the World Cup game. I had to travel 200 miles to see it on the television, big screen. So those parents didn't know anything about soccer. Their kids want to play soccer because it's one of the most beautiful and friendly games in the world.
A lot of boys and girls do play the sport,
Yeah,
right?
and they play because it's all natural. You run, you
Right.
shoot, you play in a team, so you develop that energy, and everyone's active. If you play basketball, you have 5 playing, people sitting. So now you're getting a lot more activity. Now those players then become parents because they enjoy the game. They encourage the kids to play. So we have multiplied over and over again the number of active kids playing.
Right. Okay. So, Vlastimir, where does soccer stand in comparison to other big sports in the States, if you consider it as a career?
Yeah, I mean, the sport in general is generating traction and keeps growing. And what people forget about is U.S. has a lot of immigrants from all over the world. And it's these, I mean, immigrants typically love the game of soccer, first, second generation. They all grow up playing the game. And, you know, being a coach in the youth currently, there's millions of kids that play the game of soccer and more every year. And just the growth of the sport in last probably 20, 30 years. I mean, 20 years ago, you couldn't find a soccer game on TV, or you needed to have one specific channel.
But America hosted the World Cup in 1994, and in 2026, the next World Cup, they're going to co-host with Mexico and Canada. Do you think like this would help to pump up the game and take it to mass people?
Absolutely. You look at just what happened in Doha. You know, one city hosting all the World Cups, and how much attention the whole world had on that in that city and those games. You know, so I think our game grew tremendously. A person that's unfortunately he's passed, but a good friend of mine was named Lamar Hunt. Lamar Hunt owned the Kansas City Chiefs, just won the Super Bowl.
Okay.
But one day he went to England and he watched the 1966 World Cup final.
Yeah.
First game he ever saw.
England versus Germany?
Yes, and he fell in love with the game.
Yeah, that was a great game, by the way, a classic.
Yes, absolutely. But when he came back to the United States, he introduced it to many of the other owners. And so today we have teams that continue to grow. When I was coaching, I think we had like 18 teams. Now we have almost 24, and more city wants those teams.
Okay, your take on this?
Oh no, I mean the game, it's incredible, the growth, and it's supposed to, with this upcoming World Cup, it's all supposed to come together, and this upcoming World Cup is predicted to be the most attended World Cup in the history of the game, not only because of the growth. As you know, FIFA is expanding from 32 teams to 48 teams for the first time to maximize the revenue, to give more teams, countries opportunity. But on average, in terms of average attendances, because the stadiums, the infrastructure in the US, it's going to be the highest attended and the highest averages.
As we are talking about the World Cup, like our team, Bangladesh, is nowhere near participating in the main tournament. But the way we follow the game, that is unmatchable, especially in this last World Cup. Like everyone talked about it, even the Argentina coach thanked the Bangladeshi audience for their support. So here in Bangladesh, just to give you a background, so the country is divided into 2 groups. Either you're a Brazil fan or an Argentina fan. So which one would you pick? I'll come to the question later.
You know, I'm Portuguese, so
Brazil.
I will choose Brazil.
Yeah.
I'll go with Argentina, just so we have both representation.
Great. So, do you see rivalries like this during the World Cup in the States?
Absolutely, absolutely. We're not at the point, like if you go to other countries, where when your son is born, you give him a shirt of the team you love.
Right.
In Brazil, when a boy is born in Rio, he'll get a Flamengo shirt, a Fluminense shirt, a Vasco da Gama shirt.
Right.
Because the parents, the father loves the team, the child immediately has to love that same team.
Absolutely.
And I would say, even in the US, if you walk down the street during the World Cup fever, like 7 out of 10 people will tell you, I'm cheering for so-and-so country, and I want the U.S. to do well, you know? So there's, a large immigrant population that has other national teams that they relate to.
Coming back to your activities in Bangladesh, you have done a training session with almost 40 girls. Some of them played the sport for the very first time. So what was it like?
You know, it's challenging because you want to set up activities that they all can do. And when you set up an activity, you want to improve the player, but you also want the player to enjoy.
Right.
You know, if you don't find success, it's very hard for me to enjoy that. The success makes me feel good, makes me feel good about my confidence, and I continue to grow. So it was a bit challenging. We broke the group into two groups, the younger and the more novice, and then the more experienced players Vlas took. It was enjoyable. My goal is always to bring a smile to the face. I don't ever want a player to say, I hated that, I'm not going back. So that's my role. I think that's important. At the same time, can I teach you to become more successful?
Right. You visited BKSP, the premier sports institution in Bangladesh. Fantastic facility. You trained with the boys and girls there.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like a college campus, what we would see in the US. Everything and, you know, like different sports, great facility, great infrastructure, a place where you could definitely develop future Olympians for the country. And the talent of the players that was on display there was good. The opportunity that they provide for these players to have a place, a future, and a better tomorrow if they dedicate themselves to the sport and academics.
Yeah, please.
And also, I was working with the older boys. And understand, I coached college soccer for 37 years, so I'm pretty knowledgeable. I also recruited players from our own country and other countries. And I never thought about Bangladesh as being a place that I would go and recruit a player from my university and give him a soccer scholarship. After training with those players for 60, 70 minutes, I put them through a training session, and then I noticed how well they were doing. I had to raise the level, even to the point it was almost like a professional training session. I was impressed with maybe 4 or 5 players that I think I would have recruited.
Oh, wow.
And invite them to the United States, to the university.
That's a big compliment for the boys.
Yes, but those boys were good.
Right.
They were good players, and I think some of those players, maybe the ones I looked at, will become professionals, and they'll work their way to the national team. That's a wonderful institution there.
And you have also worked with the amputee footballers in Bangladesh. Very inspiring, right?
Yeah, inspiring and most memorable probably out of all of the events that we've done. You know, you are there, you hope...
So you would pick that, like, as your
I mean,
best
one of
event,
the things that you
pick
definitely will never forget. And, you know, you are there potentially to share some of the soccer drills or teach them something, but you walk away gaining a lot of perspective and feeling like you just learned a lot by just what you witnessed and through the interactions.
Coach.
You know, I think that was well said. For me, it was the highlight of the trip. Soccer is an international language. You do the same exercises that you would do with players at different levels. And what I saw here, and I had the opportunity to work with the United States amputee team, what I saw here was a lot of players that love to be there. And their deficiencies, one leg, one arm, never stopped them from being as best as they could. And I was very encouraged to see the enthusiasm, the excitement. I am not the person to say what kind of level they are.
Right.
Okay, but what I can tell you, they were beautiful people.
And they're so eager to participate and play the game. So we are almost at the end of the interview. You are right now at the first ever and the only sports channel in Bangladesh, TSports. So you've got a tour. So would you like to add something?
What I would add is I can remember when America started the first sports station, ESPN. A lot of people say, well, how can you have a sports station 24 hours a day?
Live broadcast was not easy back then.
No, and people would rather watch other things than a sports station. Well, now it's going into ESPN2, ESPN3, you know,
Right.
ESPN Plus, and it's more than just one. And I'm very impressed that you have that here.
Yes.
And I know at night, when I can't sleep because of the time change, I turn on the sports station.
Perfect.
No, and same as he said, you know, last night I watched the Inter Milan, AC Milan game, and to be able to be in Bangladesh and turn on the TV and you see a game in English, that was like, wow, I feel like I don't feel out of place at all. So, and I mean, credit to them for investing and doing something for the people, because at the end of the day, we all know what sports do and what they can do for everybody, and how they break down the barriers, how they unite us all together, and how they inspire people to want to do and accomplish things in their lives. So to be able to bring them, you know, coverage from Premier League, Champions League, just like everybody else, or most other places in the world have it, that's credit.
Absolutely, and a lot of credit goes to the man behind all this, the visionary, the chairman of Bashundhara Group, Mr. Ahmed Akbar Sobhan. He is very passionate about sports, and it's not about soccer or football only. He's promoting sports like hockey, cricket, and some other sports too. And Bashundhara Group, and he has some massive plans for future, which if you ever come back, you would be able to see. So sadly, we have to end this amazing interview. But before we go, I would like to first ask Vlastimir, your first time in Bangladesh, in South Asia, so what are you taking back? Like, if you have to define Bangladesh, who has never been to this country, what would you say?
I would say just how everybody takes incredible pride in hospitality and making you feel so warm and welcome, and you feel so safe and embraced here. That's how I could summarize it in one sentence.
Coach?
Yeah, for me, it would be adventurous. This is a wonderful adventure, something I never expected to be a part of. And the things that every country is made up of one quality thing, and that's their people.
Right.
And I think Bangladesh is fantastic.
Thank you very much for the kind words, Vlastimir, Schellas. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
আজকের মতো এখানে শেষ করছি ফুটবল অ্যান্ড বিয়ন্ড। আমরা সব সময় শুনি যে খেলাধুলা সম্প্রীতি তৈরি করে, সৌহার্দ্য বৃদ্ধি করে, এবং আজকে দুজন আমেরিকান কোচ বাংলাদেশে ঘুরেছেন, বাংলাদেশের খেলোয়াড়দের সাথে মিশেছেন, বাংলাদেশের কালচার সম্বন্ধে জেনেছেন, এবং দেখুন যাওয়ার আগে ঠিকই বাংলাদেশকে ভালোবেসেছেন। দিস ইজ দি পাওয়ার অফ স্পোর্টস। আবারও ধন্যবাদ জানাতে চাই টি স্পোর্টসকে, আমেরিকান এম্বাসি ঢাকাকে এই আয়োজন করার জন্য। সবাইকে অনেক ধন্যবাদ।
For more updates, subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Download TSports app to enjoy exciting games and highlights. Visit tsports.com.